Right so, this is James, aka JP Harker, coming to you with another AuthorTube video. This time we are looking at 7 simple rules for writing realistic combat. Now, even if you're writing fantasy, or if you're writing sci-fi, I find few things take me out of a story like a lack of realism. Even if you're talking about space marines and lasers, or dragons, or wizards, consistency in a story and consistency within the world are important, in my humble opinion. And my field of expertise is martial arts. I've been practicing my whole adult life. My CV would take a while to talk through, but I've downgraded in 4 styles. I'm an instructor in one of them, so I know what I'm on about in this particular case. Now, you may say, but my character has the strength of 10 men because of X and Y and Z and what have you. That's fine, but unless he's only fighting people weaker than he is, at some point he's going to have to show some realism in his fighting. So that's what we're looking at. These rules can be bent, they can even be broken, but keep them in mind and it will help you to write more realistic combative scenes. I'm specifically talking about unarmed combat in this video. So let us begin. Step 1. Be consistent. It happens in films a lot and it happens in books a lot, where the villain is capable of beating the hero in combat until the end, where the hero suddenly becomes angry and is now better at fighting. Now, motivation is important, I won't deny that for a second, but you don't suddenly become stronger and faster and more skilled because you're angry. If your character is becoming better at fighting, show a reason for that skill progression. It can be a magical plot gift or it can be training, but show that there's a reason for it, otherwise you end up with just, I'm angry, therefore I'll win. And that is one of those things that takes me out of a story. So, for step 1, show a reason for any increase in skill or strength or what have you. Number 2. The majority of women are weaker than the majority of men physically. So if you have a woman fighting toe-to-toe with a man, show a good reason for why she wins. She might have superior training, she might have superior experience, she might be armed in some way, she might have prepared herself in some way, he might be unprepared in some way, but give a reason. Because having a book where a woman half his size beats a man who is huge and big and strong and trained, there has to be a reason. Why is she able to win? Now, I have female characters who beat male characters in combat, but it's explained why. It's because they have more experience. It's because they caught him unawares. It's because he is a coward and she is a hero, what have you. It's fine to have, just make sure there's reason, there's logic behind it. So, solution to that one, again, it's show a reason, show that there is purpose and logic in your story and that it makes sense in context. So that's that one. Number 3, pet peeve of mine. Big does not mean slow. Large muscles do not mean slow muscles. It's very common in literature to have, he's a big guy, but he's slow. I'll move faster than he will. No, you won't. I have fought many men who are larger than I am and faster than I am because they've trained for it. Yes, you have big beefy guys who are slow and lazy, but if somebody is trained for combat, they will have trained themselves for speed. So it's a silly assumption to go, he's big, therefore he's slow. Doesn't work. If you want to have a big character taken down by a small character, say that he's lazy. Say that he's overconfident, say that he's complacent. But, once again, logic, reason. Don't make a foolish assumption that takes you out of the story. Give reasons for it and it'll work and you can do what you like. So, number 4. Kicking someone in the head is like punching them in the foot. We all see it in films, we all read it. Bruce Lee kicks someone in the head and they fall down and it's wonderful. Fact is, if it's timed perfectly, yes, a boot to the head is great. But the odds of it going wrong are very, very high. You don't tend to see real fights where someone's standing in front of someone else and boots him in the head. You're exposed for too long, you're unbalanced for too long, and if it goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong. So yes, if your character's a bit of a show-off, or if your character is hugely overskilled, or if your character is trying to intimidate somebody else by showing how easily they're going to take out this other guy, fine, have him kicked to the head. But, broken record, show reason, show logic. And for the most part, if you're hitting the head, use the upper limbs. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a second. Oh yes, if you want to kick somebody, kick them low. Go for the knee, go for the hip joint. Crumple them. Then when they're on the floor, then you can boot them in the head. Anyone legally watching, I'm not advocating that, but yeah, if you want to boot them in the head, wait till they're on the ground. Number 5. Now this comes in connected to that. Headshots. If you're hitting someone's head with a closed fist, unless you're hitting this nice soft bit at the front, odds are you're going to hurt your hand. Most of the skull is a solid mass of bone, and if you strike it with a closed fist, your knuckles or your wrist are not going to thank you for it. There's a reason why, in the olden times, bare-knuckle boxers, it was nearly all body blows, and it was a contest of endurance. And it was because they knew if we hit the head, we risk hurting our hands. Little tidbit of knowledge, when gloves came in to boxing, deaths in the ring went up, because all of a sudden they could strike to the head with impunity, and people started dying of brain hemorrhages because they were being hit in the head with no risk. So keep that in mind. If you're having your character strike to the head with a closed fist, have them strike to the jawline, or have them strike to the nice soft face. Don't have them striking around the edge. There's a big chance of them hurting themselves. Or if they do strike around the edge, say, that hurt my hand. Better techniques for hitting someone in the head are your knife hand. If you want to be flash, you can use, get this into camera, your ridge hand, knife hand, or if you're sensible, use an elbow. Much, much better for head contact. Number 6. In the real world, the Cobra Kai would win. I'm using Karate Kid as an example, but you see it in books and films all the time. Our hero does almost pacifist training, where you see him practicing his forms on hilltops, or washing his cars, or looking very meditative while he practices on his own. That's fine and good. Forms are there to build focus, to build body control, and to practice technique. What they don't do is prepare you for combat. The villain, who's busy beating up all his training partners, he's going to win the fight. Because when you're training to fight, you need to learn, as much as your focus and your body control and your technique, you need to learn distance, you need to learn timing, and you need to have the mentality that only comes from facing an opponent. So, yes, having your character practice forms is wonderful. Having the old mountainside montage or going into the woods with a stick and practicing against a tree or what have you, that's fine. But there's going to be a shock when they have to face somebody in any kind of real live situation. The Cobra Kai should have won every fight in that film because Daniel had never fought anybody. It didn't matter. He'd scuffled with somebody at the start, but he was terrible at it. He'd never used Miyagi's stuff to learn to fight. I've only just realised you can't see these gestures I'm making under the camera, but be assured they're very sort of dynamic and martial artsy. So just keep that in mind. Have your hero have experience or have them be shocked. My other pet peeve is Will Turner in Pirates of the Caribbean. He practices with swords 3 hours a day. Yeah, but if he's never fought someone with it, he's going to lose. By the by, rant over. Final one. Number 7. And this is a pet peeve of mine in the dojo and in books. Kicking a man in the groin will not put him down for good. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it will slow him. Yes, it will give you a moment where you can run or do some other technique. But the idea of kick him in the groin and he'll drop and he's out of the fight, nonsense. I speak from bitter experience both as the giver and the receiver of such a kick. If your blood is up, you're going to keep fighting. It'll slow you, it'll knock the wind out of you, and you can go and cry later. but your adrenaline is going, if someone's just kicked you in the balls, you're going to go and kick him in the balls back. It's going to make you angry more than it's going to incapacitate you. So, yes, keep that in mind. If you're doing the boot to the groin, use it as a setup for a more devastating strike. Use it as a setup to sidekick through his knee. Use it as a setup to punch him in the throat. But don't assume he's been kicked in the balls. He's out. He's not. That's that one over. So, to conclude, I don't say for 1 second that you can't bend or break these rules. Of course you can, they are a guideline. And especially if you're writing fantasy where there's magic, or if you're writing sci-fi where you have your genetically enhanced Superman, what have you. There's all sorts of reasons why you can bend and break these rules. But keep them in mind. Keep in mind the realism, keep in mind the logic. And it'll help you keep reader engagement. The last thing you want to do is for your reader to suddenly remember they're reading a story by thinking, that doesn't make sense. So, it's good advice for writing in general. Keep reader engagement by keeping consistent within your story. But specifically in terms of unarmed combat, these are some tips. I hope you found them useful. That's enough of my rambling for now. I hope you found this useful. Usual drill, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Until next time, thank you for watching. Will out.